Neuroscience tells us that red is the color the human brain processes the fastest. It is the universal signal for alert, the color of survival itself. They tell you to wear red in the woods to be found, but in the Bennington Triangle, that rule does not apply. In 1946, a student wore a bright red coat right here. She should have been visible from miles on this trail, but the red did not save her. She was never seen again. The color only served to mark the exact spot where her reality ceased to exist. Welcome to the mystery of the forest that swallows people. To understand why people vanish here, you first have to understand the land itself. Vermont is known for its beauty, rolling green hills, maple syrup, and quiet towns. But there is a shadow in the southwest corner of the state, a shadow that locals have whispered about for centuries. Long before the white settlers arrived, the Native Americans refused to step foot on Glastonbury Mountain. They believed the land was cursed. They called it a place where the four winds met, a spiritual dead zone. To them, the mountain was not just earth and stone. It was a sleeping beast that should not be disturbed. They said the ground itself would swallow anyone who lingered too long. But in the late 1800s, industry did not care about legends. They built the town of Glastonbury right on the mountain to harvest the timber. It was a booming town once. But the mountain fought back. Strange weather, sickness, and isolation drove the people away. By the 1930s, Glastonbury was a ghost town. The forest reclaimed the houses, the roads, and the history. Today, the Bennington Triangle is defined by this desolation. It encompasses the ghost town of Glastonbury, the wilderness of the Green Mountain National Forest, and the towns of Bennington, Woodford, and Somerset. It is a vast, dense ocean of trees that looks identical in every direction. Hikers who return from these woods often report a strange sensation. They speak of a sudden, oppressive silence. The birds stop singing. The wind dies down, and you are left with the distinct, heavy feeling that you are being watched from the tree line. It was into this silent trap that a series of experienced outdoorsmen and unsuspecting tourists walked between 1945 and 1950. They didn't know the history. They didn't know the legends. And one by one, the mountain took them. The true horror began on November 12, 1945. It started with a man who should have been impossible to lose. Mitty Rivers was 74 years old, but he was no frail old man. He was a veteran mountain guide who had spent his entire life in these woods. He knew every rock, every stream, and every tree in Glastonbury. On that day, he was leading a group of 4 hunters back to camp. As they neared the long trail road, Rivers walked ahead of the group. He was only a few yards in front of them. The hunters heard him walking, and then silence. When they caught up seconds later, he was gone. They found a single unspent rifle cartridge in a stream bed, but nothing else. The man who knew the forest better than anyone had been swallowed by it. But the mountain was not done. Almost exactly 1 year later, on December 1st, 1946, the most famous disappearance occurred. Paula Weldon was an 18-year-old sophomore at Bennington College. She decided to go for a hike on the long trail. It was late in the afternoon, and the air was getting cold. This is where the red coat comes in. Paula was wearing a bright red wool parka that stood out violently against the gray winter landscape. A couple hiking behind her saw Paula turn a corner on the trail about 100 yards ahead. When the couple reached that same corner moments later, Paula was gone. The search for Paula Weldon was massive. The FBI was called in. Over 1,000 people combed the woods. They expected to find the bright red coat easily against the snow and dead leaves, but they found absolutely nothing. No footprints leaving the trail, no struggle, no red fabric. It was as if the earth had simply opened up, taken her, and closed again without a sound. For 3 years, the forest was quiet. Locals began to believe the curse had lifted. But in 1949, the Triangle claimed its most impossible victim yet. James Tedford was a veteran returning home on a commercial bus. He was sitting on the bus with 14 other passengers. They saw him sleeping in his seat. The bus didn't make any stops where he could have gotten off. Yet, when the bus arrived at its destination in Bennington, James was gone. His luggage was still on the rack. A bus timetable lay open on his empty seat. 14 witnesses, a moving vehicle, and a man who simply ceased to exist between 2 stops. He was never seen again. Before the town could recover, the horror struck again the following year, targeting the most vulnerable. On October 12, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson was playing near his family's farm. His mother left him alone for just a few minutes to feed the pigs. She wasn't far away. But when she returned, Paul had vanished. Search parties were formed immediately. They brought in bloodhounds, dogs that could track a scent for miles. The dogs picked up Paul's scent easily. They followed it confidently to a nearby highway, and then they stopped. The dogs didn't lose the trail. The trail just ended in the middle of the road, as if the boy had been lifted into the sky. Paul was wearing a bright red jacket, just like Paula Weldon. The coincidence sent a shiver through the entire community. It was no longer just hikers getting lost. It felt like something was hunting them. Only 16 days after little Paul Jepson vanished, the Triangle sent its final and most disturbing signal. On October 28, 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer was hiking near the Somerset Reservoir with her cousin. Frida was not a novice. She was an experienced outdoorswoman who knew the terrain intimately. During the hike, she slipped and fell into a stream. Cold and wet, she told her cousin to wait for her on the trail. She said she would quickly run back to their camp, just a half-mile away, to change clothes. Her cousin waited and waited. Frida never returned to the trail. She never arrived at the camp. The search that followed involved aircraft, military personnel, and hundreds of volunteers. They scoured every inch of the area for weeks before the winter snow buried the mountain. They found nothing. But the true horror of Frida Langer's case came the following spring. On May 12, 1951, her body was discovered. It was lying in the middle of an open field near the reservoir, a field that had been searched meticulously dozens of times by search parties just months earlier. But the impossible detail was the condition of the remains. Although she had been missing for 7 months through autumn and winter, the autopsy revealed that her body showed almost no sign of decomposition. It was as if time had stopped for her the moment she stepped off that trail. No cause of death was ever determined. After Frida Langer was found, the strange activity seemed to stop as abruptly as it began. But for the people of Vermont, the fear never really left. What happened to them? Over the decades, 3 main theories emerged. The first is the most human, and perhaps the most terrifying: a serial killer. A drifting predator who used the vast wilderness as his personal hunting ground, picking off victims who wouldn't be missed immediately. The second theory looks to the supernatural. Locals remembered the old Native American warnings about the cursed land. There were reports of strange lights in the sky above Glastonbury Mountain, leading some to believe in UFOs, or even interdimensional portals. The third theory is simply nature. Some believe the elusive catamount, a large mountain lion thought to be extinct in the area, had returned to take back its territory. To this day, not a single one of these cases has been definitively solved. The Bennington Triangle keeps its secrets. It remains a beautiful place, filled with breathtaking views and deep history. but it is also a place that demands respect. If you visit the Green Mountains today, enjoy the silence, but stay on the trail and never, ever walk alone.